And thirdly, we praise the Father for his purpose, because all of this is going to raise this question. Why doesn't God save everyone then, right? That's the question. Why doesn't God save everybody? Well, it's a very good question. And I hope you appreciate, if you understand this part, the rest will fall into place. I hope you appreciate that you have to answer that question whether or not you believe in predestination. So say you're a person who says, I deny predestination. God does not choose. God chooses to save everyone. The devil chooses to damn everyone. It's a tie vote, and you cast the deciding vote. That's the decision. So people are in charge of who goes to heaven, not God, not the devil. People make the choice. Okay. Does God know? I'm going to apply your be kind, please rewind theology to you now. Does God know that this person, person X, that this person will not choose him before he makes that person? Yes. Does he make him anyway? Yes. So you still have to answer the question, why did God make him? Why doesn't God only make people who will choose him? I mean, everybody has the same problem here, namely that the road to heaven is narrow and the way to hell is wide. That's the problem. And that is a problem from Genesis 1 straight through Revelation 22. It is a problem everywhere in the Bible that the way to heaven is narrow. And few find it. I mean, that's the issue. So one answer is God chooses to magnify free will, magnify the importance of our choices and decisions by saying, I will make you and you can choose what happens to you. That's one answer. I do not see that answer taught in the Bible, and it is not acceptable to me. It's not worth it for me. The juice is not worth the squeeze there. It's not worth it that hell is real and most people are there so that I can have a high view of free will. There's got to be better answers. Well, the answer that Paul gives here, anyway, is that God has a purpose in this, namely, the end of verse 5, this is all to the purpose of his will, to the praise of his glorious grace. That God has designed salvation to work this way because this magnifies his grace. It's singing praise to him. His grace is seen as glorious by doing salvation this way. Now, let me say first, I might not agree with that. If it were up to me, I would say God's grace would be seen as more glorious if he just saved everyone. However, upon consulting the footnotes here, I realized God didn't ask me. I was not consulted with this plan. So something is going on where God designs his grace to be made more glorious this way than by saving everyone. So what is going on there? Pretend I bring two people to church. This happened to me one Sunday. I brought two different friends of mine from my soccer teammates in college. I brought two of them. I'm a brand new Christian. I lean on two of them. Two of them come to church with me. We hear a great gospel sermon. Pastor preaches the gospel, incredible sermon. You're like, you hear the message, and you're like, everyone who hears this needs to get saved. And I brought two non-believers with me, one on my right, one on my left. They're both going to get saved. And one of them gets saved, and not the other one. Why one and not the other? Why this guy, not that guy? What separates the two of them? Was one more predisposed to be saved on his own volition? Was one more eager to be saved? Was one more ready to be saved? Was one more, inclined to believe authority or truth, or I don't know what it is. Or maybe just was in the right mood? I don't know there's no answer for that question. And if your answer is about something inside of the person, like, this person, he got saved because there was something in him that made him more ready. Do you see how that magnifies the person? There's something in him that led him to faith. That does not magnify God's saving glorious grace. In fact, the opposite is probably true. The more unlikely the convert, the more God's grace is magnified, right? And lo and behold, that's exactly what you find in the Bible. If God saved everybody, there would be exactly 0 unlikely converts. But by saving few, God's glorious grace is magnified by saving the most unlikely of people. If God wanted to save everybody in an extreme sense, if that was his plan in his heart, if he chose everyone for salvation, he would have done it. The Father will not set his aim on something and miss. God will not design something in his heart and fail to carry it out. He won't have a desire that will go unrequited. He won't plan salvation and be thwarted by man. After all, it was Jonah who declared salvation belongs to Yahweh. And Jonah said that, by the way, in the belly of a fish, after being run out of Israel by a bunch of functional pagans and seeing a boat of actual pagans get saved. And swallowed by a fish. And Jonah says, salvation, I don't know what's going on, but salvation belongs to God. That's all I know right now. The answer for election is here. God doesn't save everyone because by choosing to save some, he magnifies his glorious grace even more. Even more. Everyone rejects God right up to the moment he saves them. That's the truth. Everyone rejects God. If God made salvation determinative on our free will, then nobody would be saved because nobody would choose God. But by saving unlikely people, he magnifies his glorious grace. Only God can do this. Only God can take a stony heart out of a person and put in a heart of the flesh. Only God can save the unlikely people. God doesn't save people who are only kind of sinners and pass over those who are extreme sinners, right? 1 Timothy 1 verse 5, Paul says, I was the chief of sinners. Why did Paul believe and not the Pharisees who were handing Paul their jackets while they stoned Stephen to death? I mean, they were all stoning Stephen. Why Paul gets faith and not the other Pharisees? Was Paul more ready for faith? Was Paul more eager to choose? No. He was the chief of sinners. Does God pass over some because they're too little for salvation? No. He chooses David and not Saul. Tiny David and not big, handsome Saul. Are some people too weak to choose God? And no. He chooses the weak. He tells that in Deuteronomy 7, I chose Israel because they are weak. The bottom line is that if God left salvation up to us, nobody would be saved. But instead we find that God saves whomever he wants to. And he saves them by adopting them. He saves them by loving them. He saves them by dying for them. And he designs this in his mind before the foundations of the world. Oh, brothers and sisters, remember a time when you rejected Christ. Remember a time when you had your heart closed to the truth. Remember a time when you did not bow your knee before God, when you did not believe the Bible, when you did not cherish Christ. Remember that time and then ask yourself, what changed you? Certainly it was the grace of our sovereign Lord.